Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Your Excellency, distinguished participants, Chairman and members of the Board of Governors and members of Karachi Council on Foreign Relations. I am Commodore Retired Sadeed Anwar Malik. I'm the Chief Executive Officer and Secretary General of Karachi Council on Foreign Relations. Today's moderator will be Mr. Kalim Farooqui, who is senior and a businessman from Karachi. He is senior member of Karachi Council on Foreign Relations. May I request Mr. Kalim Farooqui to moderate today's webinar.
Thank you, Malik Saab. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. Excellency, nice to see you. Let me introduce the background of Her Excellency, Wendy Gilmour. Wendy Gilmour joined the Canadian Foreign Service in 1990 with postings in Zimbabwe and with cross-accreditation at that time to Mozambique, Botswana, and Angola. Also, United Kingdom and Nigeria. She served in international peace operations in Bosnia, Herzegovina, Office of the High Representative, and Kosovo as political advisor to the Commander NATO Kovo Forces in 1990s, and with the Canadian Armed Forces as a political advisor to the Canadian Commander Joint Task Force Southwest Asia. That means she's very well acquainted with Pakistan. A very vast background, madam, and it will be a pleasure listening to you. And as you can see, the Karachi Council on Foreign Relations is basically comprises of group of individuals from a different variety of sector. So may I request you, madam, to say what you have to, and then we'll have a question and answer session later. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much for the invitation to be with you this morning, and in particular, the Karachi Council on Foreign Relations. It's a very important group. You have many esteemed members in your ranks. I as I say, looking through the video, I see generals and ambassadors, as well as I see Samir Dasal online, the Canada-Pakistan Business Council, which is a very important forum for us. I started my career just as the Cold War was ending, and we were thinking that we were heading into a period. It was the end of history. We were going to have a positive, productive relationships amongst all of the major powers of the world in order to address the most pressing and challenging problems of our time. And through the 90s, through the 2000s, the 2010s, we've learned that this is not the end of history, that there are many pressing challenges, but that they are best addressed when we're able to speak to one another and work together without armed conflict handing sort of over our heads. But turning to Pakistan, Canada, and of course, we can't ignore the fact that we are living in world events, and that world events impact all of our relationships. But I think, I always start off, and I believe many of you have probably heard me speak before in fora in Karachi and elsewhere about the long-standing and deep engagement that Canada and Pakistan have. Which really starts and is very much based on the degree of people-to-people contacts. We are so lucky in Canada to have a vibrant and successful Canadian-Pakistani diaspora that stems back in different waves of immigration over decades. We're so very lucky that we have an active and vibrant Canadian diaspora here in Pakistan, many of whom share ties to both countries. These are ties that we can really build on. We also have, as Canada, decades of engagement with Pakistan in support of Pakistan's development, from infrastructure development in dams and hydropower 30 years ago, to our ongoing and deep engagement with many civil society organizations in support, primarily of women's empowerment, health, and education now. Canada remains really an active partner to Pakistan also in humanitarian aspects. We work with the United Nations organizations and of course the Pakistan government to address real needs in this country, and also to cooperate in the delivery of humanitarian assistance to the Afghan people. These are all issues and concerns that Canada shares and discusses with Pakistan regularly. But we spend much of our time here at the Canadian High Commission really trying to engage and work with the peoples of Pakistan and develop the the relationships with new and upcoming generations of leaders. I was so incredibly fortunate to spend much of the last month and a half, I guess, in 3 different visits up in the north of Pakistan and in the Northern Territories, Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral, where we were working with local communities who had themselves decided to organize and promote winter sports, winter activities, attention to climate change. Canada is so very aware and concerned that, with the impact that human-driven climate change is having on our globe. And Pakistan, of course, is one of the top 5 countries impacted by climate change. And so getting an opportunity to see and to engage with Northern peoples and to get outside and play games with them, but also have a conversation about the fact that the northern regions of Pakistan, like the northern regions in Canada, are warming at 2 times the rest of the world. And that requires adaptation. It requires a degree of resilience that is always so present in communities in environmentally fragile areas, but it also requires the rest of us to do what we can to try and address it, to assist these communities, but also to try and work together to curtail the impact of global warming to the best we can. We are quite excited by the prospect of developments in the extractive sector and declared willingness on the part of the government of Pakistan to look at addressing some of the historical challenges in the extractive sector. The Rico Deep mine in particular, it looks like that there is possibility that could be moving ahead, which for Canada, because we are a world leader in the extractive sector, both in mining, also exploration, in mining services sector, the resolution of this particular investment will open the doors, I think, to a lot more interest on the part of companies from Canada and frankly, global companies that are interested in engaging in this sector. I'm going to, I always find that I enjoy the question and answers a lot more than frankly listening to my own voice in my head. So I will stop there and just and hope that we can have, I'm happy to answer questions and frankly have an interactive dialogue. But just to say that we really do value our relationship with Pakistan, the Pakistani people, and the potential for this relationship in a country that is, plays such a pivotal role in so many different areas, and in particular in the South Asian region. So thank you very much.
There's a question from the chairman of the Sindh Board of Technical Education, Dr. Masroor, and I will read out his question. We could provide support to Afghanistan in developing and strengthening of technical vocational education and training, TVT. And this can be coordinated between Pakistan, Canada, and Afghanistan.
I'm happy to respond individually or take groups of questions as you see fit. But certainly, I think we see potential in the cooperation with Pakistan in support of the people of Afghanistan. There's no question. Humanitarian support is moving right at the moment. There is tremendous need, extraordinary need in education and health in particular. Canada is constrained at the moment from engaging with the interim administration because the Taliban are still a listed terrorist entity under Canadian law. And so our support must go directly to the Afghan people and not through administrative entities. I am hopeful that should the Taliban demonstrate that they are interested in working with the international community in addressing some of the more egregious members that they have that were engaged in the conflict in ways that were attacks on civilian and truly egregious and other terrorist-related acts, that perhaps we can find a way forward. But for the moment, we are very constrained in operating in an official capacity in Afghanistan.
Her Excellency, thank you very much for being with us on this forum. I have one observation and one question. Observation is this, that we have noticed, because we are in communication with a lot of people here in Pakistan, that Canadian embassy, they are little doing discrimination for giving the student visas for Canada. as compared to India. This is the observation. I would like to have your comments on that. And the second question is that when you think that you are going to lift the negative travel advisory to Pakistan, because now you see that Alhamdulillah, Pakistan is a very safe place, and all people are coming from the rest of the world. So these are my two observations and questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the questions. I'm actually very glad to address the what seems to be a persistent, but we firmly believe is an inaccurate understanding that there is discriminatory treatment of Pakistanis in the visa process. That is not the case. Every application is considered on its own merit based on the information that is received in the applicant's file. I would maybe just add a few, frankly, personal observations on my side, since over the course of my 3 years here, I have dealt and heard from people who are concerned with visas on a daily basis. With respect to students, the Canadian government wants more students from Pakistan to go to Canada. There is no question. It is an objective. It's one of my performance indicators for the delivery of the mandate of my High Commission. And we are constantly working to engage with students who are qualified to go to Canada and encourage them. Like, sir, our former speaker, your son going to York University. It's a great school. We are strongly encouraging students going to Canada to apply through the SDS stream, the Student Direct Stream. Even though the last 2 years of COVID have been distorting our statistics, because of course it's been very difficult to travel, and many foreign students were not going to overseas, or students going overseas to become foreign students. What we've seen in the SDS applications is that the acceptance rate for SDS is equivalent to that of the other SDS countries, like India, Iran, Vietnam, Philippines, and I think I've forgotten one. In any event, the SDS stream is the way to go. So if any of you know of students that wish to go to Canada or applying, we're trying to get the word out, apply through the SDS stream.
This is about the current hot topic of Ukraine, the confrontation at Ukraine. With the collapse of, with the end of the Cold War and collapse of the USSR, there may not have been any justification for continuation of NATO. However, not only NATO continued, but also encroached upon the former Warsaw Pact countries. Now there is confrontation in Ukraine, and there is a possibility that the Western installed government in Ukraine may be requesting for membership of NATO. That would not be acceptable to the US, to Russia, because there is a possibility after acceptance of NATO request by Ukraine, missiles could be installed right at the border of Russia. All that Russia is saying is that give us a guarantee that NATO will not get Ukraine as a member, at least for maybe for another 50 years or 30 years. So what prevents the Western powers to encroach and provoke the Russian government to give this, to ask their request for not giving membership to Ukraine? As far as the sovereignty of Ukraine is concerned, may I politely and humbly ask, where was the sovereignty of Iraq, which was invaded by the USA without provocation? Thank you very much, Excellency.
Well, thank you very much for the statement and I believe question as well. I have a different perspective, of course. It is important that we all have an opportunity to speak about our perspectives. And frankly, the more dialogue there is, the less opportunity there would be for outright conflict. NATO, as an institution, is governed by and established through the Washington Treaty, which has as one of its, I think it's actually Article 2, the principle of like-minded nations who adhere to democratic principles. NATO is an organization and an alliance of like-minded countries who have joined together for mutual defense. It is not directed at any particular bloc. It is not an offensive or expeditionary organization. It is designed to protect its member states. So in the aftermath of the end of the Cold War and the breakup of the Soviet Union, there were a number of nations that demonstrated their commitment to these principles and that sought to join NATO, and NATO enlarged to include them. NATO had an ongoing and active dialogue with Russia and would still, should Russia be interested in participating in it. We have partnership agreements with many countries. We collectively as the Alliance has an ongoing and active partnership with Pakistan, including in military education. Russia's perception of its own actions than frankly NATO's. That is our view. There are many different views in this respect, but I believe it is very important that we all underline the importance under international law and the behaviors of states to be good international citizens, to respect territorial integrity and sovereignty, and to engage in dialogue where there are disputes.
Before we request the chairman for our concluding remarks, may I very briefly introduce him to the present people, and of course Her Excellency has, we had sent her brief to the Excellency, but however I may tell you that we are very lucky to have our chairman whose articles printed in many newspapers every week, syndicated weekly columns in 6 countries in 15 newspapers, magazines in Pakistan include English Regular, Daily Times, Balochistan Express, Messenger, the Regional Times, the Frontier Star and South Asian Monitor in Malaysia, and then frequently The Nation, Business Recorder, Dawn, The News, Pakistan Observers, Pakistan Today, and Express Tribune, and Urdu dailies regularly in Express Awsaf, Taqat, Khabrein, Intikhab, Ittihad, Daily Jang, Nawai Waqt, etc., etc. He's author of books of 2 books, Escape from the Oblivion and then Blood Over Different Shades of Greens. And he regularly appears on TV on different talk shows. But in addition to all this, he is the chairman of Pathfinder Group, which has got 12,000 employees in 50 cities in towns in Pakistan. Pathfinder Group includes Security Services Division, Security Management Services, Wakenhart Pakistan Limited, SMS Electronic Safety Services, Research and Collection Services. He is also the chief editor of Defense Weekly, and Financial Services and Technological Division, Virtual Remittance Gateway. He owns this facility, Virtual Remittance Gateway, and Pathfinder Private Limited, iPath, etc. He primarily is an army officer, graduate from Pakistan Military Academy, and I recall 55 years back when I joined as a cadet, he was a senior under officer over us over there. He is the founding member of World Economic Forum at Switzerland, former director of Bank Al-Falah. He remained there for 16 years, he was director. He has been the chairman of K Electric, director East West Institute, USA, director of the year 2016, foundation member, of course, I've told you about World Economic Forum, Switzerland, formerly Global Agenda Council, GSC, for counter-terrorism, now anti-corruption and transparency, member of World Economic Forum. He hosts Pakistan Breakfast every year at World Economic Forum, and many of us have enjoyed their breakfast in Switzerland. All Pakistan Security Agencies Association. He is the senior member of Pakistan Editors Council, CPEC projects, regular speaker at National Defense University of Pakistan, PF War College, and Naval War College, Lahore. International think tanks, he is vice president and member Executive Committee of Council Relations, of course, KCFR, and Vice Chairman of Board of Management, Quaid-e-Azam House Museum. There's a list further, which we had sent it to you at the start of the yesterday. And I may not continue further, but may I now request our chairman for his concluding remarks.
Thank you, Commodore Sadeed. I think the most important part of it is that we were colleagues together 57 years ago as cadets together in PMA Kakul. I think, Excellency, first of all, let me thank you, for having given us a good discourse, a good presentation on things as they are, particularly between Pakistan and Canada, and Canadian perspective about Pakistan and what is happening in the world today. There are some things we cannot change. We cannot change our neighbors. We live in a very dangerous neighborhood, right? And we have problems, right? We have a disputed problem about Jammu and Kashmir. We have, we had till very recently a problem because of the war in Afghanistan, which is continuing in a different fashion now, obviously. But, because we are primarily, because of the Shia-Sunni divide and the problems between the Arab countries and Iran, we are also walking a tightrope there. So all in all, we have been walking a tightrope all along, whether it's regional tightrope, whether it's an international tightrope. We've been doing that. And what you see is a continuation of that, because while, we were an essential part of the shield against communism. And if you remember, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey became part of Baghdad Pact, became CENTO ultimately, and of course when that broke up, stayed part of the regional cooperation development, which ultimately became the Economic Cooperation Organization. So, Excellency, we are a member of the, actually, and if you look at when Commodore Malik has talked about the World Economic Forum, and where we are, and actually the World Economic Forum sets trends, precedents which actually happen in the world maybe 2-3 years after their ascent. One of the things was that they included as part of South Asia. We were all part of South Asia till, everybody ganged up against us for a few years. Now the things are changing. But because of that, we felt part of South Asia and not a part of South Asia. We are a part of the Middle East and not a part of the Middle East, right? So ultimately, we, because of the North-South corridor, people talk about the China-Pakistan economic corridor. They forget the North-South corridor, which comes through the Central Asian states to Pakistan, right, and which ends in Gwadar. The North-South corridor and the East-West corridor, which is the old RCD highway, which was, from, in fact, actually as we speak, 2 trains have gone from Pakistan right up to Istanbul, and actually, it's actually happening. So we are part of 4 corridors, the MENA, Middle East, North Africa, China-Pakistan economic corridor, North-South corridor, and we are part of the RCD. Now, the point is, we need to have a balanced relationship with everybody. We just cannot afford sides anymore. We cannot afford to be on, blindly, like we went in, and I think we made a mistake. We could have, been more balanced in the Afghan war, but I think we made a mistake, and for that mistake, we are suffering and will continue to suffer in the future, because this war on terrorism is not going to, whatever the Taliban hierarchy may think of Pakistan and may have a good side of Pakistan, the people down below are not going to listen. They're going to come across, because some of them really went from here to join the fighting there. So they are not going to be under control of the Taliban hierarchy. So I think people need to understand our situation. You did speak about areas which are non-accessible, right? And because, Excellency, those are non-accessible because of the problems that occurred there. We had a regular war. Swat was taken over by the Taliban, Tehrik-e-Taliban. FATA was taken over by the Taliban. The Pakistan Army fought a magnificent war to get rid of the occupying Taliban from there and got them out, restored peace in that area, and actually, and integrated FATA and SWAT into Pakistan proper. And obviously, people are sensitive to people going there, not only for any other reason, but for security reason. But may I remind you, Excellency, you put us to these standards, but you don't hold India to those standards. Can you go and visit Jammu and Kashmir? Can you go and visit Assam? Can you go and visit the Seven Sisters, Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur, Bodoland, etc.? You cannot, because all permissions, etc., and that is starting right from the right for last 70 years. It's not from yesterday or day for yesterday. So I think people have to see things as they are and really be practical about the things. I think we, in the end, we value our relationship with Canada. You mentioned about Barrick Gold, obviously Reko Diq, with the second largest copper and gold reserve in the world. If once the Reko Diq problem is solved, right? Obviously, we would love to have mining interests from Canada come into Pakistan, exploit because that is our strength. That is the raw material we have. Second largest copper and gold reserves in the world, right? And obviously, we required Canadian investment, Canadian technology, and we are very lucky. Of course, Mr. Kalim Farooqui has talked about Canada and his son going to Canada. The previous destination of choice was UK. Then it became USA. And then after 2002, the destination of choice became Canada. And a lot of, there's a huge Pakistani diaspora in Canada. And we do look forward to a connection. We look forward to more interchanges. We look forward to more interaction with your think tanks. We need to talk to each other. We need to dispel the doubts with each other. So, Excellency, please accept, my heartiest gratitude for coming to us and speaking like that. And we look forward to further interaction with you. We look forward to your actual visit to Karachi, when we like to host you to this thing where we like to, have the same address, at more personal address. So I thank you. And I thank all the participants for being with us today. Thank you very much.